Croeso, welcome to Expansive. I am Yar TTomlliw, your host, and this is the first Expansive DLC cast of 2018. We've finally made it, and oh boy do we have a lot to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about some of the massive games that we've come in to expect that are due out this year, some games that could potentially feature this year, and also the DLC and the content that we're well aware is coming in 2018, and perhaps some that we can expect. So yeah, we're just going to dive right in right now because we have so much to talk about. But the first big one I suppose we should talk about, because we're in January, is Monster Hunter World. Probably the biggest release of the month and arguably one of the biggest this year, and potentially something that could stand up as a game of the year. Having played the open betas, I've really enjoyed what I've seen. I'm also a big fan of the Monster Hunter games on the 3DS, and I did originally play Monster Hunter on the Wii U as well. So I'm really interested to see how this fares in the massive open world environment, whether or not it's going to hit all the right notes. But what we do know is that there is free content updates already designed for the game, and there's one due out in the spring of 2018. And we do know that these content updates are going to be regular, so we're expecting them to be all throughout the duration of the year, potentially even pushing into 2019, depending on how well the game does. The first content that we're aware of is Deviljho, who's a very prominent, familiar character in the Monster Hunter world. And as we've seen from the blurb, the Deviljho must feed constantly and will devour anything in its way, even feeding on the largest of monsters with its massive jowls. This wild beast really is one for only the bravest of hunters to take on. And as we said, it is the first of many scheduled and is due in the spring of 2018. And things that I've seen from the open beta, and I'm sure many of you have seen as well, is that monsters do tend to attack one another even when you're fighting them. So that could present some interesting issues with these monsters, how they would react to the Deviljho. Perhaps it's going to introduce a new gameplay mechanic. That's all we know right now, but we do know that it's the first of many to come, and it's obviously going to be a pretty expansive, massive world that's going to continue to grow. Obviously, it's a massive franchise. It's done well in the West, but I feel like Monster Hunter World is going to be the title that really pushes the franchise through the glass ceiling in the West. And I'm really excited to see how well it does in terms of having it for the first time ever on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and eventually the PC as well. But how about localizing Monster Hunter cross on Switch as well? That'd be nice. Anyway, I won't harp on that. The next game I'm going to talk about is Red Dead Redemption 2. We know Rockstar have an incredible attention to detail in games, so much so they haven't actually released a new game since GTA 5. Can you believe that? Obviously, we've seen L'Île Noire has been remastered and remade, and we've seen GTA 5 being ported around, and obviously GTA Online has been massively supported, which we're going to touch on in just a second. But yeah, we know how much attention to detail Rockstar put into their games. Obviously, Red Dead Redemption is a huge classic. It's a game that so many people hold out hope that one day be remastered and we'll actually get to play it on current gen systems. For now, it's just a PS3 and Xbox 360 game. It's not even made it onto PC, unbelievably, which is quite a surprise. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is highly, highly anticipated, and it's got a lot to live up to when you consider how amazing the previous game was. But the way that the hype has been for this, and the way that people have been talking about it and bigging it up, could it even end up being bigger than GTA 5? Who's to say? We don't know much about the online component, but I imagine that if it's anything like GTA Online, it's going to be a constantly developed, expanded world. And that's something I've always loved about Rockstar games, is that you've seen GTA Online is still being worked on and developed 5 years after the game originally launched. They know how to support their games, and they know how to support it with free content updates. They know how to keep giving new content, giving the people what they want. That is genuinely impressive stuff. And if Red Dead Redemption 2 is anything like that, then we're going to be playing that for years to come, and I'm really looking forward to it. The visuals look drop dead gorgeous. The world looks amazing. Obviously, people are really into the cowboy theme at the moment, with Westworld taking on so well, and the fact that it's a sequel to a long-awaited hit. It's going to blow out of the water, and it could potentially be the game of the year 2018. I've already said that about Monster Hunter World, but Red Dead Redemption 2's got to have a shot too, right? So that's one we're going to look out for. And again, I feel like, talking about the DLC content side of things, if GTA Online is anything to go by, I would expect there to be some big updates to Red Dead Redemption 2, perhaps even some for their online component, but maybe some single player stuff too, because I feel like Red Dead Redemption really does lend itself to a narrative focus very much. So that'll be interesting to see how that fares. Another biggie, of course, is Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, sequel to, again, another another PS3 game, which we all really kind of hope we'd get a remaster for, and we'd all hope that we'd see again on these current gen systems. Like so many big games, I feel like that's one of the bigger missions that's yet to really make that transition. And maybe that's something Namco Bandai will look at in the future. But Ni no Kuni 2, the original, released a kind of fairly limited fanfare. Obviously came from Level 5, so it had a hell of a pedigree behind it. But Revenant Kingdom has certainly got people talking now. People know what the franchise is all about. They love the look of it. The art style is wonderful. Even the mechanics work really well. And I feel like Ni no Kuni 2 is really going to come out with a point to prove. And it's a game that's looking damn impressive in many respects. I don't know if there'll be any DLC for it. There could be some story packs, who's to say. But in terms of a standalone experience, there's very few coming out this year that are going to have quite the impact and quite the, the pedigree to really make something special. And I think Namco Bandai have certainly got something really, they've got a real hit on their hands there with that. And obviously, of course, they're going to be remastering Dark Souls, but this is a new, fresh IP for them, something a sequel wasn't always clear to begin with, and they've actually decided they're going to go ahead with that now. And I feel like this is almost going to be a reset for the franchise, and I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, it looks wonderful, and I'm very excited as an RPG buff. That's right up my street. Then you also got games like Yakuza 6. Now, this is the first numbered new sequel installment for the franchise in many years. Obviously, we've seen Yakuza Kiwami got remastered. That was original Yakuza, and then you had Yakuza 0 as well. This franchise now is really finding its feet in the West with the PS4, and I think a lot more people have got on board in the last few years. It's really made a niche for itself in the market, and it looks great. Obviously, if you didn't see the mini game trailer just recently, they're showing off, like, there's a baseball game on there, there's more karaoke, which I think the game is notorious for. There's a bit more bowling, there's all the arcades, so it looks like they're going to have Space Harrier in there, and Yakuza games are just great. They've got a really strong narrative, they've got great combat, there's a lot to do. For me, obviously, when Shenmue came out, those games were fantastic and they were groundbreaking. I feel like Yakuza has taken that to the next step now. It's the Shenmue games that I really have always wanted to play, and I can't wait to see Yakuza 6. It looks damn impressive as well. God, there's some brilliant games this year. It's just blowing my mind already. This is just 4 games, right? I've just lifted the top of my head, and there's tons I haven't even mentioned. And as for the ones that are rumored, who even knows? But in terms of DLC and content, I mean, there's been add-on packs and things for Yakuza games, like more cosmetic and costume design. That's not to say we won't get any story-driven content and any patch and content updates, but I certainly feel like we're going to see more cosmetic add-ons for these types of games than perhaps we would story content. But who knows, maybe there'll be additional DLC where you can actually have games in the arcades, like maybe you could actually purchase some of the Sega Mega Drive classics and play them in the arcade. That seems like such a natural way to make money for me, and who knows, maybe it's something Sega will pick up on, or maybe it's just going to be all included in the package. Who knows what they're going to have in there. But Yakuza 6, another magnificent game for 2018, just one of many. And just a few others I thought off the top of my head. Obviously got Far Cry 5 is coming out as well. That's almost certainly going to have some form of season pass, and that looks like a real return to form for the franchise after Primal. Less said about that, the better. God of War, I don't know if not, there could be story-driven stuff. It seems like a very self-contained experience, but it's certainly another game that's looking magnificent, huge production values, a real sort of reimagining for Kratos and that world and the mythology and the fantasy. Really exciting to return to that. There's Anthem, which is almost certainly going to be a massive, expansive content update, patch-heavy DLC, huge world that's going to have so much in it. And then you've got Darksiders 3, which for me is one of the most anticipated, biggest surprises of the year. I'm so happy we're going to get another Darksiders game, because the first two are among my favorites. The soundtrack in Darksiders 2 alone from Jesper Kidd was just, it blew my mind. And having those games remastered, we actually reviewed the War Mastered edition of Darksiders 1 recently, and it genuinely reminded me how good that game actually is. I mean, I love Darksiders 2, but Darksiders 1 actually really did go under the radar when it first came out. And so I'm very, very happy to see Darksiders 3 is making an appearance, and with a female lead as well, so that's really going to shake things up, and we'll see how that connects into the previous 2 games when that's out. And God, all the rumors stuff coming out this year. I actually saw a rumor earlier today that Kingdom Hearts 3 could hit this year. Then who's to say what's coming up for Switch? There's been talk of Pokemon Switch coming out as well, a full massive experience. This Metroid Prime 4 got announced last year. Who's to say that's not going to drop this year? Maybe Animal Crossing. Who knows? For me, this is a year of certainties, and we've got some great certainties we already know about, but it's the uncertainties that could really add that extra X factor. and we know there's some fantastic stuff in the works that probably in E3 is just going to blow our minds, and maybe even sooner, who knows. But already there's 4 or 5 games that I'm already salivating just thinking about diving into, and as I say, luckily Monster Hunter World is one that's out this month already, so haven't got to wait long for the big hitters to start coming. Obviously we touched on the new games and we've touched a bit on the DLC that could come out for it, but here's the DLC we do know about for sure in 2018. So I briefly touched upon GTA Online, and what we do know for sure is Rockstar have confirmed there are more exciting updates to come in 2018. Now, with Red Dead Redemption 2 already said to come this year, a lot of people thought that perhaps, things would slow down with the game now. It's been a while, it's been since out, and, obviously GTA Online is, it's still played. And I say it's still played because did you see just last month in December, the concurrent players for December 2017 for the Doomsday Heist is the most that GTA Online has had since launch. Can you believe that? They are breaking their own records 4 to 5 years after the game launched. Yeah, I know, right? It's insane. You think about that this game is just this constant phenomenon that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it's weird because when GTA 5 first came out, a lot of people didn't really jump on the GTA Online bandwagon. I remember there was a bit of hate and a bit of dismay about it. Most people just dived in because they wanted to play a new GTA 5 story. They wanted to explore the world, they want to buzz around and just, get through it and have fun like normal. But gradually, with all the new content updates that have been added, all the updates, all the patches, the additional DLC, Rockstar have really cultivated and created this magnificent online environment, this playground that people are just lapping up on all formats. And it really presents a refreshing change of pace because you obviously see FPSs dominate the online space like Call of Duty and Battlefield and Battlefront and everything in that sort of category. But then you have a GTA Online which really does things differently when you've got the different types of modes. GTA Online, as I say, Doomsday Heist, most concurrent players in December 2017 since launch. They broke their own friggin' records. So damn right Rockstar are going to make more content for this, because why the hell wouldn't they? When they're still pushing boundaries and they're still growing, that's got to tell you something. So yeah, more exciting updates to come in 2018. We don't know what they are. Obviously, that's coming off the back of Doomsday Heist, so they've got a lot to live up to. We do know there probably will be new modes, there'll be new vehicles, probably cosmetic stuff as well, and who knows what else. But yeah, GTA Online is going nowhere, even though Red Dead Redemption 2 is apparently coming out this year, which has actually led some people to speculate, could it get delayed again? Who knows? We don't know, but we don't actually have a concrete release date for it, so anything's possible. What we do know, Assassin's Creed Origins, the Hidden Ones DLC is out on January 23rd, which takes place 4 years after the events of Assassin's Creed Origins. That's actually launching and it's part of the Season Pass. We also have the free content update Discovery Tour, which is long awaited on February the 20th. Now, for those who don't know what the Discovery Tour is, it basically creates the ancient Egypt environment that you've seen in Assassin's Creed Origins, but it takes away all the combat, strips it all out, takes all the collectibles away, and instead allows you to just explore and learn more about the environment as you would have seen it in ancient Egypt. It's a phenomenal, exceptional idea. It's completely new for the Assassin's Creed series, and it's actually kind of new and refreshing for games in general. So much so that people have actually been talking about it being brought into schools to educate children about ancient Egypt if they want to learn more about their history. And, the fact that it's an Assassin's Creed game, a lot of kids are going to be like, oh, wow, that, I want to learn about that. And you're seeing this shift more and more. You had Minecraft educational, and now you've got Discovery Tour, which is I think it's a genius idea from Ubisoft. It's a free content update for anyone who already owns the game, or if you don't even have to own Assassin's Creed Origins on PC to play it. It actually can be purchased separately for $9.99, and you don't even have to own Assassin's Creed Origins whatsoever. So Discovery Tour is looking brilliant. It's a great idea. I'm fully in support of it, and I can't wait to see it, what the execution is like. I really can't wait to have a look around. Hey, maybe, who knows, if they added the VR function as well. Can you imagine? Just, oh wow, I just got goosebumps. That's really cool. And then the final bit of story DLC for Assassin's Creed Origins is The Curse of the Pharaohs on March the 6th, which is, again, it's a separate story, but it's related to the events of Assassin's Creed Origins. Don't know the full picture about that yet, but we will learn more as we get closer to launch. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it in case people haven't played Origins, because I've seen a lot of people have been playing it recently on my timeline for having it for Christmas and whatnot. It's a massive game. It's still quite fresh. So yeah, lots to talk about with that. But yeah, on Origins as well, there's lots of events have been added to the game, like you can fight bosses. Obviously, these new DLCs will increase the level cap. I think the first DLC increases it to 45, and then it goes up to 55 in the second DLC. So that will obviously take you to new areas, new islands, and you can explore and fight new bosses and enemies and things like that. So Ubisoft are having a lot of fun with Origins. I feel like they're having more fun with this now than they've had with any, well, probably since Black Flag, actually, because that was really liberating and free. And I feel like with Origins, they kind of, is obviously the serious nature of Assassin's Creed is still there, but Ubisoft are really, I feel like the shackles have come off a little bit and they're just having fun with the franchise again. And as a result, we're having all fun with it. And it's a beautiful looking game. So I'm really happy. And I think Origins is a real return to form for the franchise, no doubt. So next up, we've got Mario and Rabbids Kingdom as we dive into the Switch now. And we do know, as announced in the Nintendo Direct just recently, that we're going to have a Donkey Kong Story DLC for the game this spring. Now, obviously, that's going to add Donkey Kong is a playable character. It's going to add a whole new island, so that means you can have new moves as well. You can have new story content related to the events of Rabbids Kingdom. It's great to see this game is still being supported. I loved Mario and Rabbids Kingdom. It's one of the biggest surprises of the year. It's easily one of the best third-party games on the Switch right now, and yeah, it's such a quirky collaboration that probably should never have worked, but it works so damn well. And it's an XCOM game as well, which is, you would never have put Mario, Rabbids, and an XCOM game together. I mean, the pitch for that is just wild, and there's actually a fantastic story on Eurogamer on how that pitch came about, which is 100% worth reading. It's definitely worth your time. It's just such a great occult hit that never should have happened, but we are so damn glad that it did happen. And I hope that it makes development studios look at games more often and really feel willing to take a chance on things, because Ubisoft clearly were, and it's paid dividends for them, because it's one of the highest rated games on Switch. It's one of the best attach rates on Switch, and the content definitely, it just deserves it. It's a great game. We loved it. Check our review out if you haven't already, and again, check out that article on Eurogamer. It's phenomenal. So that's coming out in the spring. We also know that Middle-earth Shadow of War is getting a ton of DLC as well in 2018. So there'll be new story DLCs released in the game. The first is actually out next month, The Light of Galadriel, and you'll follow Alteriel, the Blade of Galadriel. She's got dual blades and abilities, and we'll need to use them to beat the ever-present threat of the Nazgul. So that'll be the first content out this February. We're still waiting for a concrete release date on that. And then there's a final piece of content due out in May, which is the Desolation of Mordor, where you put into the guise of Baranor, the captain of the Minas Ithil. So you need to galvanize a human army against the orc threat in a roguelike campaign that actually sounds pretty interesting. There's also going to be a glider added to the game, which players will be able to use to help them in battle. So those DLCs will be available separately, individually. The first three are actually going to cost $11.99, and then the Desolation of Mordor is a little bit more at $15.99. So we do know a bit more specifics about that, but it's interesting to find out that Middle-earth Shadow of War is going to be supported well into 2018, and who knows if there's anything beyond that as well. So that's a game. If you already own that, you've got the season pass, then yeah, you've got lots to look forward to in the coming months. Speaking of a game that released last year and is going to have a ton of content, is South Park: The Fractured But Whole Danger Deck. And this is the first add-on. It's kind of more combat based, I guess, and it's going to offer a tougher challenge than is often in the main game as you try to navigate your way through Dr. Timothy's Danger Deck. So that should be interesting. Then you've got From Dusk Till Casa Bonita, and actually this one could have more superheroes having a bit of trouble there at Casa Bonita. We don't know much about it yet, but we do know that the content is coming out very soon. And then the final one is Bring the Crunch, and it's the return of the Mint Berry Crunch, which wasn't actually in the main game. So there's no confirmed dates for these as yet, but they shouldn't be too long before we get release dates and announcements for that. But it's quite refreshing to see you got 3 story DLC packs coming out for the game this year. And if the rumors are to be believed, South Park: The Fractured But Whole will also be making an appearance on Switch this year. So yeah, it might be worth watching out for that as well. So there you go. Next up is Destiny 2, which is always a source of controversy among some people. So obviously we had the Curse of Cyrus that released last year to kind of mixed reviews, mixed attention. But we do know the second expansion is probably due around May time. So it's going to be a little while before we see anything. And that's going to be on the Warmind Rasputin, which was found on Earth in the first Destiny. It's likely to include a similar amount of content to the first one, but there'll be more story missions, exotics, and an increase to the light level. But there might even be new raid elements. Now, we do know as well there's going to be some seasonal elements. So there's going to be the Valentine's themed Crimson Days, but also there's going to be more kind of Iron Banner type modes. And there's also the possibility of having bigger expansions at the end of the year. Bear in mind that Destiny had the Taken King and Rise of Iron, but it's interesting to, obviously we don't know anything about that yet, but it's a fair comment, I feel, to say it's similar if the Bungie would follow a similar roadmap to Destiny. So we'll keep an eye out for that and see what comes out in the coming weeks. But the Destiny community is certainly very up and down about Destiny 2. It started with positive press and it seems we've gone a bit downhill at the moment. Some actually feel that Destiny 2 is a bit of a regression from the original Destiny. But Destiny really came into its own towards the end of its life cycle. A lot of people really did play it throughout. Destiny 2, I feel, has kind of gone a bit off the boil. I feel like a lot of people have moved on to other things. Obviously, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds has been doing huge things on Xbox One. There's going to be Monster Hunter out this year, which I think is a lot of people are going to dive into that. So I think Bungie and Activision have a lot of work to do to really restore people's faith in Destiny and to get them back in and really feel passionate about the franchise again, because it's going to be a tough year and they've got a lot of competition. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that this year for sure. Another game that really defied expectation last year and I think is really going to go on to strength is Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. Now we know all about the Freedom Chronicles Season Pass. We know that there's going to be additional episodes included in that. So there's also going to be, we had episode 0 that came out, it was kind of like the prelude to the first episode, and we know that there's going to be The Adventures of Gunslinger Joe has already been released, but the remaining 2 expansions for 2018, there's going to be plenty to look forward to. The first actually launches this month, The Diaries of Ancient Silent Death, on the 30th of January, and you're going to be playing the assassin Jessica Valiant in California as you attempt to discover secrets of Operation San Andreas. So that should be quite interesting. And then the final episode is due on March 2018, and it'll go from the amazing deeds of Captain Wilkins, who must travel to Alaska to shut down the deadly and enigmatic Operation Black Sun. The season pass is available for $17.99. You have the already previously released episode as well as those that are coming up. Wolfenstein New Colossus really did, it shot up to the top of their Game of the Year list. So it's great to see that the franchise is still doing great things, and it would be weird if we didn't get a Wolfenstein 3 at some point, because I feel like Machine Gun Games and Bethesda have really they've lucked out with it. So yeah, Wolfenstein 2 New Colossus, more content to come up through to March this year. And of course, it wouldn't be a year of DLC content without a Call of Duty game at the helm, and World War II is going to be no exception. And we know about the first pack, the Resistance Pack 1, there's going to be 3 new maps. There's going to be Anthropoid, Occupation, which is a remake of the Modern 3 Resistance map, and Valkyrie. And there's also going to be a new War Mode mission, which takes place in France, and you've got to rescue Resistance fighters. And then there's going to be a Zombies chapter as well on the separate island, where you go on the northern coast of Germany called the Darkest Shore. And I assume there'll be at least another 3 content packs for Call of Duty, and by that time we should probably know what the next Call of Duty game is going to be. So yeah, as of every year, there's going to be plenty of Call of Duty content to come, so keep your eyes peeled for all that. Now interestingly, there will also be new content for Final Fantasy 15. Now we've already had a season pass for Final Fantasy 15. We've already had a massive multiplayer expansion, free expansion on top of that, but we're also going to get more episodes. It seems like Square Enix are just not done yet. So not much is known about the DLC just yet. All we know is that one of the protagonists is going to be Arden, but we don't actually know what the other 2 are going to be, and we don't even know what the content is going to do, with Arden. The community have got they've got their ideas who they'd like to see in those roles in the episodes. They're going to be obviously similar in vein to episode Ignis, episode Gladiolus, and Prompto, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this. Obviously, it's great that they're adding more story, and they feel like there's much more story to tell within this universe. We also know there's going to be a Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition, which is going to take all that story and bring it into other formats. And then they just announced the Royal Edition, which is coming out in March, and that's going to add new content along with the Windows PC version as well, which is coming out. So that's due very, very soon. So Square Enix are very much They're still going full on with Final Fantasy 15, but they will also expect some additions to the multiplayer Comrades DLC. So we feel like, that there's still a strong foundation there. It's still kind of finding its feet at the moment, hasn't really figured out what it wants to be, and I think the community is still a little bit hot and cold on it at the moment, but hopefully Square Enix can really turn things around this year with new content updates and really show what this means to them and what it can actually bring to the future of the Final Fantasy franchise. Who's to say? One thing's for sure, Final Fantasy 15 content is going nowhere, so I'm assuming we're going to get another season pass with all these new additions, and yeah, it's going to be great. You've also got Injustice 2. We know that Enchantress is going to be in the game. She's actually already launched on January the 16th. She gained early access on January the 9th. She's actually going to be part of the Ultimate Edition pack, the Ultimate Pack or the Fighter Free pack, which is also going to include the surprise edition of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Who'd have thunk it? That's pretty awesome, right? So we don't know what kind of movesets they're going to have, but Enchantress is already out now. She came out this month, so yeah, that's a biggie already that's come out for 2018 of Injustice 2. And I imagine that will probably be another fighter pack at some point, so we look forward to that too. Darkest Dungeon just launched on Switch, but we also know that there's new content coming up for that called The Color of Madness, and that's going to follow both the Shield Breaker and Crimson Court. That's due out for all formats whenever it's ready, so that's one to look out for as well. Again, little's known about it. We do know that it's been worked on by Red Hook Studios for a while now, but yeah, The Color of Madness, that's also due out in 2018. And jumping back again a little bit to Final Fantasy, but to slightly different, it's going to be Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, which is a free-on-free fighting game where you've got both the heroes and the villains of Final Fantasy. It's kind of like all of them coming together into one game at one time. Now we know there's going to be about 28 characters at launch, but there's going to be additional 6 arriving in post-content DLC, and who knows beyond that. It's exclusive to PS4. We don't actually know who these characters are going to be, but we do know that genders they've talked is going to be a semi-even spread of male and female, but they've also talked about some have come from the previous sets of the early sets of Final Fantasy, and some have come from the more recent sets of Final Fantasy. So there's going to be a nice mix for people, for sort of franchise diehards and people who are kind of only familiar with the more recent stuff as well. But more on that as we get it. So another game that is actually coming out this month is another biggie, is Street Fighter V, the arcade edition. Now we know Street Fighter V is a bit of controversy when it first launched. Obviously we knew that there was going to be purchasable characters throughout, but you can actually now earn those through in-game currency. But the arcade edition really compiles all of the current content that's available for the game with some new features and modes, an update to the user interface and things like that. So it's a real reboot, I guess, for Street Fighter V. It's still a PlayStation 4 exclusive. So they've also added like the familiar characters and online leaderboard support now. There's going to be second V triggers, a team battle mode, special challenges, as well as 3D costume previews, arcade mode illustrations, and much more. But we know that Season 3's characters are now out. As we begin, Sakura is actually one of the first character to come out, and she's actually launched with the arcade edition. And we know that she's going to be followed by Sagat, Cody, and Blanca. But there's also going to be new characters Falk and G throughout 2018, and who knows if Capcom will continue to expand it beyond that. So there's a lot more Street Fighter V content to come, so we're looking forward to seeing how that pans out. And then you've got another experience which is continuing to go from strength to strength, is the Elder Scrolls Online. Bethesda are certainly not done yet, and they've said that we can expect a whopping 3 more DLCs as well as a full new chapter in 2018. So they're not slowing down, and they've got to say there's so much for us to continue to do in Tamriel. They'll officially announce the first DLC of 2018 earlier on in this year, but the small preview is that it's going to be dungeon based, called Dragon Bones. And as the name implies, it's going to be Nord based in theme, with each of the 2 dungeons expanding upon the lore of that region. There's also going to be a Skyrim-esque update which will include quality of life tweaks, including one long awaited feature that everyone who cares about their character's appearance will love, and the homestead storage items. And you can expect it on the public test servers very early next year, so hopefully within the next few weeks. So yeah, Elder Scrolls Online not going anywhere. Plenty more content to come from that from Bethesda and ZeniMax, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Another free update coming out in February is for Mario Odyssey. So we're going to have the Luigi Balloon DLC, which is the first DLC for the game. It's a free update. We don't know if there's going to be any bigger DLCs at some stage, but this one is essentially kind of like a leaderboard-based online experience where you collect a balloon from Luigi where he's based in one of the towns and cities in the game, and then you take that that balloon, you put it in one random area on that map, and then it's down to someone else to try and find that in the quickest time possible and then record their score. Likewise, you could be the person to find the balloon and someone else hides it from you. And you compete against other people to determine your score to see where you rank, and you get coins and other items for that, for how well you do. But the update also adds new snapshot filters. You've got like a golden coin at the center, so you can kind of have a bit of fun with that. You've also got kind of like a retro looking aesthetic. And then there's also new costumes for Mario. So he's got like a knight costume, makes him look like he's come from Loredon. And there's even like Sunshade Mario with his Hawaiian shirt, so make him look ultra cool. The only sad thing is that Luigi is still not a playable character. So I don't know what Nintendo's plans are for poor Luigi. It seems like even though he had a year dedicated to himself a few years ago, it's like he still hasn't really got his big moment, has he? But hopefully Luigi's Mansion 3 will turn that all around if that ever gets announced. But yes, the key to setting high scores, according to Nintendo, is knowing every nook and cranny of a kingdom's terrain. It's like a new form of objective-based speedrunning. Interesting way of putting it. But that won't actually be accessible to you until you complete the main story in Super Mario Odyssey. And honestly, why would you want to jump into anything else until you've done that? It's a great game, great story. It's actually one of the better Mario stories I've seen. So really getting that. It's a fantastic game. And the final bit of content, as we know it, is Battlefield 1 Apocalypse, the long-awaited DLC pack, which has been shrouded in mystery for most of the time. But it's actually coming out in February. It's the 4th DLC expansion, and it obviously comes to those who already own the Premium Pass. So the major part of it is going to be the former maps. There's actually going to be 5 new maps, including the bloody, muddy hell of Passchendaele and the Astro-Italian clash of the Caporetto, portraying 2 of the most infamous battles of World War I. The scenic wheat fields of River Somme transform into a nightmare after devastating artillery barges. 2 of the other new maps are going to be London's Calling and Razor's Edge, which have been specifically designed for a new game mode, which is called Air Assault. But the specifics on that haven't been revealed as yet, but we're looking forward to find out more about that in the coming weeks. But the new maps are going to only be playable in this mode. So Apocalypse also adds some new other elements, although again we don't know much about them just yet, but EA have revealed there's going to be new vehicles, weapons, gadgets, service assignments, specializations, and dog tags. And before that, Premium Pass owners will also get the North Sea campaign component, which is part of the Turning Tide DLC, which is again launching this month. So Battlefield 1 players, if you've been waiting for stuff, don't worry, there's still plenty for you to do in 2018 as well. And I'm guessing EA at some point will have to announce another Battlefield game, and it seems like a good time to do that, doesn't it? So yeah, Battlefield 1 due out in February, lots to look forward to. Can't wait to see it. And that's about it in terms of DLC and content as we know it. I'm sure there's probably stuff that we've missed. And if you're aware of any DLC or content that we've not mentioned, please feel free to get in touch. Let me know and we'll mention it on the next podcast. And again, if you're aware of any tips or hints in terms of any upcoming content that we may have missed, do let me know. It'd be great to cover as much as possible. The aim of this podcast and all podcasts in the future is to make sure we're documenting as much DLC as possible, no matter what game, no matter what format. That's what we want to be doing. But obviously this kind of gives you a bit of an overview of a roadmap of all the content that's going to be coming out in 2018, and hopefully that's going to be filled out and expanded more and more as the weeks and months go by. But yeah, 2018 is shaping up to be pretty awesome by the sounds of things. There's lots to get through, lots of content, lots of interesting things, and I'm sure tons of things we don't know about yet that we soon will. But thank you very much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this first cast. My name is Yar TTomlliw. Thanks for listening. We really hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be seeing much more of you in 2018, we hope. And if you've got any questions, any comments, anything you'd like to tell us about the podcast, or anything you'd like us to answer on the future podcast, just get in touch with us. You can find us on Expansive DLC on Twitter. You can find Expansive DLC on Facebook. You subscribe to us on YouTube at Expansive DLC. Or if you've got any questions and you want to email them in, it's expansive@expansivedlc.com. You can grab this podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and SoundCloud. And of course, you can find us on expansivedlc.com, where you can find all the latest news. So thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you next time. Bye bye.